"The goal of this class is to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but," said my English professor, who was wearing a neck brace because of an automobile accident. "Now, next Tuesday, I want you to write your first autobiographical story. Since Bill is obviously different from the rest of us and has already started on his autobiography, I want the class to write him questions that you would like to know about him, or his disease, cerebral palsy." I groaned, since I couldn't talk. I wanted to say that cerebral palsy was not a disease. Some would call it a disease, but it's not contagious. Some would call it a handicap, but it doesn't handicap me. Stairs, curbs, narrow doorways, steep ramps, and an unaccepting or misinformed public are my handicaps. Some people would call CP a disability. This is closer. A disability is a medically defined condition that manifests itself in a physical, emotional, and/or mental limitation. But I don't like that term. Basically, what cerebral palsy is to me is an inconvenience, like the professor's neck brace was an inconvenience to him. "Oh, I obviously said something wrong. How about if I use the word condition instead of disease? Is that better?" the professor asked, smiling. I nodded. It would do, even though it did make me feel as if I were pregnant. As the class wrote, I reflected on how they must have been seeing me. I was quite a sight, tied into a power chair that I operate by pushing against its control box with the back of my head. I have a stylus attached to my head via a band from a welder's helmet. Since I can't talk or use my hands, I point to a letter chart on my lap tray. A kind classmate has to take off my mittens, take off my hat, and unzip my coat, so I don't roast in class. Then, after class, he rebundles me so I can brave the Nebraska winters. The students hadn't any way of knowing that after the semester I would graduate from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln with a bachelor's degree in journalism, nor could they have known that I was living in an apartment off campus. But I prayed that by the end of the semester my classmates would see that I was just like they were. The professor collected the scraps of paper from the class and gave them to me. I glanced at them only for a second, but one note kept drumming in my mind. It asked me to recollect my earliest experiences. I thought, as I made my way to my other classes, what were my earliest memories of my years in the world? Could I separate what I actually remembered from what was only told to me? Sorting it out wasn't easy. I remember being told that during my first year of life, I had 3 expensive hernia operations. As a result, I cried a lot. Because I had no sucking reflex, I couldn't take a bottle until Grandma Rush devised a way of holding my lips around the nipple of my bottle. I remember that my mother had told me that when I was about 5 months old, an uncaring, cold pediatrician confirmed our family doctor's diagnosis of cerebral palsy. "Your baby has cerebral palsy," he told my mom. "He might also be deaf, dumb, blind, and mentally retarded." According to my mom, he had stripped me and laid me on the examining table. I was being treated as if I were of no value, as if I were invalid. The examining room was cold, so when the good doctor bent to examine my penis, I urinated in his face. My mother said that I always did have good instincts. She looked for another doctor because she knew I wasn't blind or mentally retarded, and found a neurologist who specialized in cerebral palsy. I remember being told that when I was 9 months old, I got my first set of braces. As my mom puts it, they were heavy, expensive, confining, and forever outgrown. But they did their job and kept your body straight. I remember being told that although I was a demanding and expensive baby, I was loved. I remember somebody was always reading to me or holding me. I remember that I felt always love and acceptance. I met my aide for lunch at a cafe on campus. I asked him to get the scraps of papers from my coat pocket and to arrange them so I could look at them. The top scrap asked 2 questions. Where did you go to school before UNL? And, if you can't walk, how did you get there?